Welcome back. It's been a while since we tied a streamer, so we're going to do an old school one. I'm trying to fill my boxes up for spring flies. I really love featherwing flies in the spring. I think they're particularly good early season. I think they lose a little of their effectiveness later in the season. Your fly is your fish, your food-based fish start growing up a little bit, but man, these are really hard to beat early season. And so I'm going to do a really old school fly. When I was a kid growing up in Michigan, man, whenever there was a mythical sized fish caught, it was always, some old dude got it on a 9-3. And the 9-3 was just legendary where I grew up. And so I'm going to tie one, just kind of my style of it, just a little bit different. But I want to go over what, what I said earlier, that I really think these featherwing flies really should be in your fly box, especially early season when you're juvenile fish or when there's a lot of fry and a lot of stuff just coming in pre-par and all that stuff. It's really a good time to have these things. And so I want to kind of go over a couple things about it. I'm going to be working, which I've done tons of stuff with American saddles. I talk about this. This is one of the things that is just indispensable to me. I cannot live with, I have every color of this saddle, and I tie a ton with it. But in these feathers, and this one I'm going to do a saddle, but in this style, and I'm going to show you one in a second, in a lot of these blends, because I'm going to show you some styles of feathers, something I do, it's a little unique to this style, but in these ones where I blend, I frequently will use neck hackle. And the neck hackle is just a little bit shinier and it's a little bit more translucent. So when you look at these flies, like this one here is, I moved that vice, Jeremy. When you look at this, there's 3 colors of feather. Each side has 3 feathers on it, right? So is that good? Mm-hmm. All right. I've got purple, then I've got a brown grizzly, and then I've got a dun feather over top of it. And so what you see in the original is kind of, you can see the par marks with it not dry. You can see them back in there. That is such almost every fish till it's in its juvenile stage has a par mark. All trout do, a lot of your suckers, a lot, all your sculpin are mottled, and they've got these colors in them, but they're not boom, like here they are. They're blended. And if you really want to see the master of this, get Carrie Stevens' book. It is just, she was the absolute queen of all of this stuff. And she was, she blended her colors. Her Rapid River is still, to me, is one of the best flies ever made in the history of the world. But the whole thing of it is that you're blending these, and especially on that last layered feather, that's when I like to have that little bit more shine and a little bit more translucency to the feather than you get sometimes with the saddles. And so, like I said, I'm going to do most of these with saddles. I've worked with them forever, and you can find shiny feathers in there. But if you and the hackle, the capes are a little bit stiffer, and that's really what you're looking for. There's going to be plenty of movement to this, but especially in the front where we're going to glue these. You want it to be a little rigid so that the hind end is kicking. They don't, you want it to kick at the halfway point where all the tail's moving. But what I want to show you is something that's pretty unique. If you look at this 9-3 in there, it's not two full feathers. It's a feather, and it's a style that I don't know. I've never seen anybody do it. I just want to show it to you. It's kind of something I've been playing with. And basically, I'm going to take this one here, just so you can see what we're talking about. And
kick that other neck out.
Oh, sorry. So what we're going to, get him out of the way. What you're going to see is that it's not, I've stripped half of the feathers off, half of the barbulars off. And so it's just I've never seen anybody do this style where you go in and strip them. And so what I was doing, I started out with a traditional layered feather, right? And so, and this is and again, this is just a yellow grizzly with a light olive over top of it, which is like the best perch in history. And perch are a giant food source for trout. Don't think because they're spiny dorsal and all that. I have mounted 600 mega. I've been taxidermist most of my life. And the really big brown trout, there's 2 or 3 things that are really consistent. One, there's a crayfish part in virtually every one of them. And 2, I went in and I looked at what's in their stomachs and all of them. The other one that was really surprising to me was how many perch I find in trout's bellies. And I mean places where you can't imagine it's possible there's a perch. It's cold, cold, cold water. Where the hell they come from, I don't know. But aside from the perch being there, it's the same thing I was talking about earlier. All these fish have these barring, right? And so when this thing started, like this is one of my favorite colors in the world. It's just light olive over yellow grizzly. And so when I started this, I was just sitting thinking on and it was the 9-3 that first started me doing this. And I was going to just go in and I was going to just split that. I thought, well, that'd be really cool. And I started leaving a throat down here. And so the first one's on this, I wanted a true perch. And I was going to do this with an orange feather. But this one just kind of came out. And you can see it's just a badass looking, the modeling effect is really cool. Then if you're sitting around and absolutely have nothing to do, I sent this one to my buddy Kurt, and he said I used a marker. And it's not a marker. I stripped each one. I mean, it's a really fun thing to do. It's fun, like I said, I've never seen anybody do it. Maybe because somebody did it a long time ago, so it's a really shitty way to do it. I don't know. But it's really fun. So the sets I'm going to do here on this one, and I want you to see something because I actually got in a hurry. We were running late to shoot this video, and I was setting these, and I'm going to show you how we do them in a second. And I left off, I took the feather, I'm going to show you how to do that. But if you look at this one here, it's got a black throat. And all I did was when I stripped this feather, and I'm going to show you how to do it because I don't want you to do what I started. When I first started doing them, I broke a lot of feathers. I start and I pull. I'm going to do this side because then we can see it and I can do the other one. If you start way up here and try to do it all at once, it kind of compromises the rachis, the stem of the feather. And so try to do it in small pieces. If you want to do like I was doing where I pulled some stripes and you want to do that, just do that. But do it in small pieces. If you try to do a whole bunch of it, sometimes I broke feathers at the top, sometimes I didn't. But most of the time, if I just take your time and go through and just strip like at a ½ inch at a time. And I've never had a problem doing that. And so what I did with this one is I simply pulled down and started up above that and just made sure I left a throat down here. That's a lot more than I want. But I left it down there. So you can see it right here. It's a really cool look. I did it on these. This was a shad style. And that, it's much bigger. Kind of like instead of doing sometimes you use a mallard flank as a crest and a cheek, and it just looks cool. On these, I got in a hurry and I just stripped it off and went, oh crap, I got done this, I don't have time to fix it. So anyway, it's going to be there. But you can see what I'm getting is this just incredible two-tone that's going to sit there and have the green. On the original 9-3s, the first ones I remember, they were tied flat wing like this. So the feather wasn't sideways, it was sitting flat on top of the body. And then your black feathers sit like they are right now on top. I don't know. When I started tying, I saw them that way, but Tom Noms, the guy that was very instrumental in teaching me a lot of stuff about streamers, he didn't do it that way, and the other ones I saw were just layered. So we're going to do it kind of in that respect. So everything's here, and so I want to. I've done a tutorial on this before, but when you do these, when you're gluing these, get a board and take your feather and make sure you've cleaned it all off, and your stem's like no more than 1 inch long. And so when you do that, if you've got the long stem sticking out here, because all you're going to do, you're going to take some tear mender. I didn't mention that earlier. Tear mender, to me, is one of the most indispensable things on your fly tying bench. And if you work with feathers, nothing better. I've got flies that are 2 years old that I glued these feathers together with, and they have never separated. This stuff, I've seen a lot of guys set their eyes on with their pre-doing epoxy heads. They'll set their eyes with these. I've seen people set them and they just leave it. I mean, this stuff is so strong. It's just latex glue. And so anyway, you're going to take it. I put a little daub on something and take your bodkin, and I simply, can you see that, Jeremy? Is that close enough? So I just put the little glue on here, and I just dab it right on the rachis, the stem of the feather. Dab it on the rachis. I seldom go more than a 1/2 inch with it. And an inch is a lot because you're just asking for, it's getting built up in there. So I usually run about a 1/2 inch right here. Just dab it on a little bit on each side of the rachis. Take your other feather and just lay it right on top. And then this is where not having this long stem. So I don't know if you can see this or not, but there's a long stem here. And it tends to want to fight the other stem. So just make sure they're cut off at about 1/2 inch or so. You can work with them. So just take your glue and then just get it where you want it and tap your finger in it just a little bit. Boom, it's set. It'll be done. You won't have to fight it. This is what I did just before. And I mean, they're just indestructible. So let's move on to actually tying this fly. So we've got, for material wise, where'd that hook go? This is I'm tying these on a 4X long hook. This is number 2 4X 7008 MFC. There's not a lot of 4X hooks around. And you've heard me preach about long hooks. I don't like long hooks because fish don't eat the hind end of a fly, they eat the head. They do not nip the hind end. Like you hear that constantly. It's just not relative. They don't, especially when they're spiny dorsal things, they have to eat it by the head to kill it. And they seldom bite, they don't bite this thing and eat it. They bite it and kill it, and they'll hold it and they'll kill it. They don't do that by biting its hind end. So they come in to stun it and they hit it here. Well, any fish worth his weight comes in and hits it, and that's why I like these jungle cocks. I think it's a true target. They come in, they hit it. There's plenty. If your fish's mouth isn't that wide, you should be looking for bigger fish. So I'm going to have a 4X long hook. The body is going to be, and this is totally up to you. I'm going to use large mylar silver. I've seen a lot of people they'll go back and they'll rib them with this oval tinsel. I used to do that. It looks cool, but I had a tendency to see it the fish got their teeth into that stuff a little bit more, and I quit using it. So we're going to have a mylar body. We're going to come forward. And the thing that's different about this one that you can see here is that I've got some yellow into this fly. I just really dig yellow. When I'm fishing brown trout, which is what I fish for because all other fish are non-game species, in my opinion, we hunt brown trout, right? And they dig yellow. And so this fly never had yellow in it. I'm going to drop just a little bit in the bottom, right against the body. That's just something I like to do. It doesn't call for it. Matter of fact, I've never seen it in one. And then I'm going to have my white bucktail underneath that. And again, if you don't want that yellow, leave it out. White, then I'm going to have our feather sets, and we're done. This is a really quick fly. And give me you. So off we go. So where's that hook? I moved that vise just in case did you fix it? My bad. Can't move things. Jeremy gets angry.
Stay north.
Stay north. Okay. So the thing I did not mention is just for fun, I'm a total separate fly thread junkie. I mean, I'm totally addicted. I'm going to use old school Danville. This is 140, just because that's what I did them on in the old days. So you go over here. Oh, and by the way, I put jungle cock on these too, on these sets. I missed that saying it. I put some jungle cock on here. They never had that in the old. I mean, I never saw them with that. Nobody wasted that much time on these things. So I'm going to start this thread. You have to decide on this where you want the head, how long you want your heads to be. I mean, I do mine. I mean, it's just kind of you get what you used to, what you like. Look in a book, see which one you like the looks of. I mean, it's just, there's not a lot of function to that. It's just kind of bottom line is what you think looks best. So I'm going to set this mylar on the top, and I'm going to leave room. When I get here, I'm going to set this a little bit of the yellow, and then I'm going to set the white right here. I'm going to you'll see when we get there. So now we're just going to set this, go back. I'm tying sideways, so it's kind of funny. It's not funny if you had to tie this way. I tie with my vise sideways so you can see off those cameras. So I'm going to get here, and so I just kind of open those up. There's no reason to sit and just other than if you're new, practice your thread controls. You come back. I like it to end a little bit in front of the eye, and I'm just going to work backwards. Could you have started way at the back and saved all that? You sure could have, but you wouldn't have learned your thread control. So now we're just I'm going to run a hitch in this just so I can get it where I want it. You're trying to make a nice, clean, flat body when you wrap over Mylar, especially Mylar. Tinsel wasn't, I still did it. You practice having flat spaces. So now I'm going to flip that around. Mylar is gold on one side, silver on the other. And so I've got the gold up, and I'm going to turn it over just like you would with a regular tinsel metal. And I'm going to make sure this first one, I do one full turn, and then you see how that's stretched? I stretch it. And so now I'm just going to make nice even wraps forward. About every fifth, sixth, I'm really pulling on this stuff. So I don't have any gaps in here, but I kind of check every once in a while just to make sure that I'm really tight, especially get up towards the front because you're flexing your hook so much. So now I'm right to where, there, I'm a little bit forward even. I'm going to come back over top of that just a little bit. So just hook it. Make sure it's tied off. Nice. And nothing worse than having one of those come undone. So there, we're tied off. Now I'm going to take just a hint of yellow. I don't need a ton of this. And like I said, if you don't want to put it in, don't. It didn't originally. I don't know. I would love to tell you it makes the fly fish so much better. It's total BS. I don't think it makes it do any better. I just like the looks of it. It's just something I got in the habit of doing, and I like it. I also tie them without, by the way. If for sometimes just if something tells you that that's not working, I have the regular ones because I have total confidence in those. So I'm going to take this hair and I want it to be just a little bit longer than the hook because it's not going to be back the length. Make sure you know how long your feather sets are, right? So there's your feather. I just want this to be an accent. I don't want it way back by my tails. And so I'm going to take this hair, I'm going to do this upside down so you can see it, and I'm going to set it how long I want it, and then I'm going to cut this at a 45-degree angle, right? Just like that. And then I'll try not to get my shoulder in here. Come around, and I'm going to I'm right at the beginning of that, and I'm going to make sure this is set and it wraps up a little bit around the body, right? I just want you to see that the shortest hairs are on the bottom. Oops, get back here. You got me turned really sideways now, Jeremy.
You turned yourself.
I know. It's awful. I'm way over there. So I actually want that a little bit forward. I'm going to grab that just so you can see. So I want that to be just a little bit further forward. So there so what I'm doing is now I'm going to work forward, and because I cut that at a 45-degree angle with the shortest hairs, I'm going up to the longest hairs, and I'm compressing all of it in from the very first one. I have a high compression, and then I'm getting no build at the front. And you'll see it's almost, by the time I get up there, it's almost like there was nothing on that hook. Now I'm going to come back just right in front of it and drop my white hair. This one's going to be a little bit more substantial because I'm trying to develop the belly of the fish, right, of the minnow. And so the yellow is just sitting in here, and don't be afraid to pull this up around the side either. You know, just move it up around it. It's set pretty well at the halfway point. It doesn't matter. Like on my sample, I actually, on this one that I tied earlier, I actually put it on the top too. It's up here also, but you get a little bit of build when you do that. So we're going to take this, and I don't have to stack this. I look at it, you can see the tips. They don't all have to be the same. But I want it longer than the other one. So this one I'm going to make just slightly longer than that tip, but still shorter than the overall wing. I don't want it to go all the way back to the wings, just, and that's a little bit personal how you like the looks of it. So if you want to, I'm going to do it again. You don't have to turn this upside down. I'm doing that so you can see it. So I'm cutting this at a 45, and now I'm going to come in here right tight to that yellow, and I'm going to set that, and you can see shortest are down here. I'm going to make just a couple wraps. I'm going to take it and look. So right, when I set that, I don't like that set. It's too much on my side, and because I'm half-assed sideways here. Now I'm going to just take this and I'm going to rotate it with my hand. And I want it to come up about halfway up that, into that yellow. And I'm going to check this side, same thing. Okay, we're good. And so now I'm going to, again, you're going to see, make sure everything's clean down here. And you can see as I move forward, I'm not getting much of a build. Got a little bit of a bump right there I don't like, and I'm going to stick my thumbnail into it. I got a little bit of a build when I was messing with that. Just take your finger and just kind of work it around, see if you can get it to flatten out. I'll have time to do it in a second. I'm going to build this. I'm just going to look things over now. Is it where I want it? Is the yellow just barely up into the body? See, there's a few here, a few there. Everything's good. I'm just looking over top everything to see. Trying not to cover up that camera behind me. So now I got a nice flat zone to tie my wing in. And I've got about the size head that I like on mine. That's up to you. Now we're going to set these feather sets. And again, there's two main feathers in your jungle cock here, right? And so I've got 3 feathers laid beside themselves. And before I start, I kind of like to see that they're flat on both sides, and I'm working to get a snap. So this is the back side. And so I'm going to set this, and I'm going to get these set where I can I'm just going to, in advance, I'm just going to set this. I'm going to set this one first because I can't see that one. That would help a lot. You realize I just tied a fly almost completely with those glasses. It's amazing for an old dude like me. So, and I didn't mention this. When I set these feathers, if you look at this one, I didn't mention it earlier. And this is a total, it's an experiment. I'd set these feathers, generally speaking, come back here. I've been messing with this one. I set them up at an angle on the original set. They're kind of set above there. And usually when you set these feathers, you set them flat, right? You set it flat like this, down, so the rachises go right beside each other. I took this one, and I was messing with it, so it's a little bit, got to get him back into shape here. And I set these feathers at an angle. And this one I did pretty aggressive. And I've got it, so they're kind of glued down like this. And I don't know if this is going to work at all. Total experiment. I'm just thinking that when it gets wet, it's going to stay up a little bit higher, give me a little bit more green. That's all it was. And that's where this whole thing came from, of splitting this, the barbulars off, was so I could get a little bit more green underneath this thing. So now I'm going to come forward here and I'm going to look, make sure that this set it's a little bit back. Just take your time right now. It's not quite where I want it to be setting. That's fine. I'm going to take this side, and you can see, and I set these black feathers up just a little bit higher. I'm going to just set these with a couple light wraps, and I'm going to get the feathers so they're pretty well matched up. This one's a little bit shorter. Move them forward just a little bit. And so I'm going to make sure, and you see on these, I left these 2 little paddles. I didn't strip it flat. I don't know why. Looked cool to me. I like bass fishing. Looked like a paddle tail. I don't know. That's not why I did. I thought it looked kind of cool that they weren't tipped all the way back. So maybe they'll look like little, I don't know, maybe it'll look like a tail. I don't know. It's just, again, I've never seen this done. It's just fun. It's something different than everything we tie every day. So now we're just I'm not putting a lot of tension on this thread. And I'm coming forward, I'm making sure my sets are holding clean, everything's where I want it. And now I'm going to just get these stems. You can see there's several of them. Got this set down so that the green sits down. It's going to get wet, it's going to come forward. Now we're just going to clean this up, come right up to the eye, and then build backwards. And so now I'm not reefing on this, I'm simply putting tension. You're never going to pull those out if you've just got nice even tension. But what you can do if you reef on them is you'll set your feathers off to one side. And I'm pretty certain it was Carrie Stevens who said there's no amount of thread pressure that can upset a poorly set feather. You either have it set or you don't, right? And so I want these and I'm going to set these up how I intended them to be, up a little bit higher. Hopefully when I glue them, maybe that even helps a little bit more. Just double check, everything's clean. So then we can just come in and finish your head off. And this is up to you, what you like the looks of. I'm not going to put too much effort into this, just so I like them to build just a little bit. And then you can, if you want to sit and mess with that for hours, you can, and you can build really clean tapers. I'm going to, for the sake of getting this fly done, I'm going to set that, make sure my feathers are where I want them. I just really dig these little paddle tail things. I don't think they mean anything to the fly. And then just give it a hit of varnish. My thread's a little bit gooed right there. This is just going to give it a little shine right now. My glue is way too thick. This is a water base. You can just take some denatured alcohol and whatever thinner you've got and add it. This glue is grossly thick. See how that was sticking to everything? But it's what I have to work with right now. For a guy who owns a fly shop, you think he would go grab some. So that's the 9-3. You can see right there, it's got the little bit of yellow in it. It's got that new stuff. I don't know if it's new. I've just never seen anybody do it with this. I've had a blast pulling these feathers apart and just kind of working around, getting all these perch-like stuff on it. It's just been really fun. It's something different to do. But any rate, it's a really, like I said, it's a really effective early season fly. It doesn't go away all summer or all fall either. It's just, I really particularly find these featherwing sets really effective for trout early season when there's a lot of juvenile fish around. Hope you liked it. Hope it helps you out.